The very first time I went to China, I was 13 years old. It was January of 1988, and we flew on a plane into Beijing. It was my mom, me, and my little brother, Tibin, who's 9.5 years younger than me, so he was about 3. And we flew in and we landed, and immediately we were picked up by relatives. This was my experience in China in 1988. I was constantly surrounded by relatives. We would go from one relatives to another relatives to another relatives, and they were always talking in Chinese, and I didn't speak any Chinese because my mom didn't teach it to me when I was a kid. So we were constantly surrounded by Chinese, and I would oftentimes end up actually taking my little brother out onto the streets because we were tired of hearing Chinese and we wanted to get outside and we'd have to bundle up because it was so cold in January in Beijing. But we would be walking around and people would come up and say friendly things to us, and we didn't know how to respond because we couldn't speak Chinese because my little brother was so cute and they'd constantly be smiling and saying things. And so I became pretty clear that knowing a little bit of the language would be helpful. For example, one day my mom and I were in a hotel and I needed to go to the bathroom. So I said to my mom, I said, I got to go to the bathroom. She says, well, why don't you go ask the people at the front desk? And I said, well, I don't know how to say it in Chinese. She says, oh, I'll teach you. You say, 厕所在哪里? And I said, okay, 厕所在哪里? So I went up to the desk and I asked the man there, I said, 厕所在哪里? And he goes, oh, 哪里哪里哪里? And I was, thank you, So one of the things you need to know about this time is that in 1988, at that time in China, all the boys my age had super short hair. It's just the way that they did it. They all had like really, really short hair. And my mom cut my hair, and she didn't particularly enjoy cutting it, so she would let it grow long. And I'd ask her to cut it, and she's like, no, not yet. And so my hair at this point was like, pretty bushy out to here. So I went over to the bathroom, and as I was heading over there, I was about to go in, and I noticed that it was the wrong bathroom. It was the ladies' room. And I knew this because, that sign that, has that universal picture. And I was like, oh, he must have sent me to the wrong bathroom by mistake. So I figured, it's probably on the other side. So I went around to the other side, and I was thinking to myself, he didn't think I was the wrong gender, did he? And I went into the bathroom. And after I was all done, I was coming out of the bathroom. And as I was coming out of the bathroom, this old man was walking in. And all of a sudden, he looks up and he sees me coming out. And he goes, oh! And basically, I knew at that point what he was saying was, oh, wrong bathroom, because he thought I was the other gender. So I did not like being mistaken for the wrong gender. So I went running up to my mom and I said, Mom, I got to get a haircut right now. Everybody thinks that I'm a girl. She's like, no, I love your hair. We shouldn't cut. I was like, Mom, I want a haircut right now. I want people to know what I am so that it feels right for me. Anyways, I did eventually get a haircut, but I continued to have issues with language. And so, for example, my older brother, Arnie, was actually studying Chinese in Beijing at that time. He was 18 years old, and so we got to visit with him as well. And I asked Arnie to teach me some Chinese language, and he did a little bit. But at one point, I said to him, hey, Arnie, can you teach me like a bad word in Chinese? Not a really bad word, because I was a good kid, but not a really bad word, but just like a sort of bad word. Like, if somebody does something I don't like, I can say like, oh, you're stupid or something. And he said, no, I'm not going to teach you a bad word. I said, please. He said, no, I'm not going to teach you. I said, please. And I kept on pestering him, each day. And so finally one day Arnie goes, okay, fine. I'll teach you a phrase that you can use if somebody does something you don't like. He says, somebody does something to you and you don't like it, you can say this phrase. 我是国界. 我是国界. Now, Chinese is a tonal language, so it's 4 different tones. So if you say it wrong, people won't understand you. So I was being very careful to practice to do this correctly. 我是国界. 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 And I kept on saying it so I'd remember it. Now, I was in China and everybody was nice to me, so I never really had an occasion to use it. But I kept on practicing anyway. But I kind of forgot about it a little bit. And then one day, we were out on the street, Arnie and I, in Beijing on the corner. And, it's Beijing, so there's tons of people in China, so we're just constantly surrounded by people. And we're on the corner, and we're waiting to cross the street. And at this point, this car comes around, a taxi cab, comes around, it's careening around the corner. And it all like scares me. And I jump back, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. And then at that point, I realize I can use my phrase. So I step out into the street, and as that taxi cab speeds away, I go, 我是国界! 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 And when I step back, I notice that everybody on the corner is looking at me like, what is he doing? And then I look over at my brother, and my brother's going, and he's laughing. And I go, Arnie, what did I just say? And at this stage, all the people on the corner realize that we're related, and Arnie's starting to laugh, and then they start snickering as well, laughing a little bit. And I go, Arnie, what did I just say? And he says, you just said, I am a pot sticker! I am a pot sticker! I am a pot sticker! And I turned to him and I said, that was not nice. And he was laughing, and everybody was laughing at me. And so the theme of this story is just, language is really important, but you have to be really careful when you're learning a language, especially when you're learning it from your older brother and you're asking them to teach you a bad word. I hope you enjoyed that story. We will go back to China and hear more stories. That is the story that I have from when I was in 8th grade.